This one is very interesting. So I'm going to allow a couple of seconds for people to get into this room, and then I'm just going to get into my spoiler talk for this movie. Because I could have talked about this all in one singular video. I mean, I could have, but that would have been hours of editing, which I don't have the time to do. So I figured let's just do a live spoiler talk for this movie. If you hear any background noise going on outside or whatever, I have family here, so yeah, let's go ahead and get into this. So, Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse was definitely one of the best superhero movies I've seen in a while outside of the Batman. And this movie actually surprised the heck out of me. I didn't expect it to be as good as the first one, or at least close to it. It got close, but it fell short of just a few areas, which I'll mention in this spoiler review in detail. But the way that they expanded on the multiverse or the Spider-Verse in this movie was so creative. This was definitely more of a multiverse of madness more than the Doctor Strange movie. And that surprised me a lot. So, surprisingly, the way they explained the multiverse in this movie was essentially that there are canon events where some things are absolutely a necessity to happen to every Spider-Man, or there's some events that actually has to happen in order for that world to have a Spider-Man. And apparently, Miles Morales is an anomaly. He's not supposed to be Spider-Man. The spider that was transported over to his universe was by a scientist, the Spot, in this movie. I'll get more into him later. And essentially, because of the Spot, Miles Morales became Spider-Man, but he wasn't technically supposed to. And so because that world doesn't have a Spider-Man, that world's in utter chaos. I believe it was like Earth 42, if I'm not mistaken. But I thought that was so interesting as a story beat, and it actually adds more to Miles' character more than it hinders, which Spider-Man is supposed to be an everyday man, not supposed to quote-unquote be destined to be Spider-Man. I feel like that added more to that aspect of Miles Morales, and essentially the fact that anybody can wear the mask. And I love that aspect that they threw in there. Now, speaking more on the Spot was actually a surprisingly good villain. Essentially, his whole backstory was surprising me with the whole fact that Miles created him. When the whole collider exploded, he was one of the scientists that was caught in the blast, and he became the Spot. But he was also the person who transported the spider from Earth 42 over to that world. It escaped, bit Miles, but also he's the same scientist that got hit by the bagel in the first Spider-Verse movie. So that was a good touch of comedy, and it added a little bit of a funny backstory to the Spot. But one thing I loved about the way they handled about the Spot in this movie is the fact that he essentially was not treated like a major threat at the beginning. Because the Spot is a C-tier villain. He really is. But the way they progressed his character and the fact that he has to break into Alchemix labs across the multiverse to upgrade his powers actually made him into a genuine threat to not just Miles Morales, which is the whole reason why he's doing all of this. It also makes him an overall threat to the multiverse. And I thought that was a very interesting aspect that they threw in with the Spot. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that actually happens in this movie. I am not like one of those reviewers where I can talk ongoing without drinking something, so I'm going to drink something real quick. My throat gets dry super easily. You guys will understand. Yeah, Miguel O'Hara. Now, I was wondering how they're going to handle my boy in this movie, because Miguel O'Hara is actually one of my favorite Spider-Mans, mostly because I think he's very unique. He adds something unique to the character, and he adds something unique to the overall expansive Spider-Verse, especially in this movie. So the way they handled him in this movie, I thought was actually really well done. I still don't entirely remember why he has to inject stuff into his shoulder. I wonder if it has to do with his urges of biting people. That may be an aspect as to why they did that. I can't determine that, but I'm willing to guess that they probably did it for that very reason. Or at least maybe he's doing some enhancements to himself. I mean, Miles said in that train scene where he was like, "Are you sure that you're Spider-Man?" That's because Miguel's powers are so different from other Spider people that he's really not in the same category as other Spider people. And yeah, Miguel O'Hara, the way they treated him as a like a kind of like a ninja Spider-Man was very well done. Love that. Love the fact that they hinted toward the fangs, but they never fully displayed them at all. I mean, you get hints of those attributes from Miguel, but you don't fully get to see them in the movie. And I'm assuming that they're going to save that for the next movie because this is a part one. And I went to go see this movie with my dad. He was surprised when he was like, I didn't know it was a part one. I knew it was a part one. But I didn't expect the movie to end the way it did. And it was so interesting how they ended it, where essentially Miles is stuck in another universe because to escape the Spider People, he has to transport himself back to his world. And I'll touch more on that in a second. But because his DNA was switched from a spider from another multiverse, he went to that multiverse instead of the one that he was supposed to end up in. And which was actually, I kind of noticed that when he first got in the teleporter. I saw Earth 42 and I was like, wait a minute, is he going to the wrong universe? But then when he saw his mom, I was thinking to myself, oh, okay, well, maybe things are, just fine. He ended up back home. But then when I saw the punching bag in the background, I was like, well, that's a little bit weird. I didn't see that in Miles' room before, but maybe I didn't pick it up. Then when Miles tries to reveal that he's Spider-Man to his mom, and she's like, who's Spider-Man? I was like, oh, shoot. He's in the wrong universe after all. And he's in a world where Uncle Aaron is still alive and his dad is dead. And Miles in that universe, because he never got bit by the spider, or because there was no Spider-Man in that world, Miles Morales is the Prowler because it looks like Uncle Aaron is mentoring him. And that was crazy to me. That was super crazy, unexpected. But the way they handled it, I was like, that was really well done. And because there was no uncle, his dad wasn't there, and his mom has to raise him by herself. You notice that he has more of a Puerto Rican accent, which I thought was actually really cool detailing. Hats off to the voice actor for doing that, by the way. So, essentially, the whole conflict of the movie is making sure Miles doesn't screw things up because he doesn't fully understand. And essentially, in these canon events, a lot of these spider people lose a police captain. And this is where we get the cameo from Andrew Garfield, where they show footage from The Amazing Spider-Man where he's crying over Gwen Stacy's, Captain Stacy's death, which was a great scene in that original movie, by the way. And I thought that was great. The audience went wild when that happened, but it added very well to the story. It didn't feel like fan service for the sake of fan service. It felt like it added to the story. And it shows that these movies are more connected than we can all imagine. As a matter of fact, this movie's handling the multiverse way better than the MCU is right now. And that's crazy. That's actually crazy that Sony's doing that. And they also talk about the death of Uncle Ben. You see Tobey's Spider-Man crying over Uncle Ben, which was another great cameo. In the background, you also saw Josh Keaton's Spectacular Spider-Man crying over his Uncle Ben, which was another great addition. As a matter of fact, there is a cameo from Josh Keaton where he walks up and he basically tries to, calm Miles down and tries to let him know how it is. And it was a great moment. I was like, I lost it when that happened. I was like, oh my God, they actually brought back the man, the Spectacular Spider-Man. That's great. Even if it's just for a little bit of time, this movie truly is meant for the fans, and I feel like they did a good job doing that. And this could have been a disaster, like what Disney's doing, because Disney's not handling this stuff properly. And Sony pulled it off. They really did pull it off. Again, better Multiverse of Madness than Multiverse of Madness, and maybe even better than No Way Home too, as well. And this movie was actually crazy. That train fight that they had, I've seen a lot of people arguing back and forth between who would win, Miles Morales or Miguel O'Hara. Let's just settle it right now. Miguel O'Hara would have won that. But at the same time, that wasn't the point. The point was that it was kind of like Doctor Strange when he's trying to catch Spider-Man. He wasn't trying to hurt Miles, but then you notice him starting to get pissed off. And when he started getting pissed off, it was like, okay, then he had him pinned down. He wasn't going anywhere. Unless he would have used that electricity, there would have been no way that Miles would have gotten out of that. And he used the spider people all in one place, which was a cool plan. And it got Miguel off his back. And again, he would not have won that physical altercation. But because, for the reason of plot and because Miles thought it through, yeah, I mean, he finally got away from him. But that's also part of the issue that I have with some of the parts of this movie is that some elements in this movie feel a little bit contrived and a little bit weird at times. For example, I do find it weird that that Spider-Gwen goes back to her universe after a beautiful opening scene of them fighting the Vulture. They take the Vulture down. We have her introduction to 2099. They introduce her to the overall multiverse team. And then her dad finds out that she's Spider-Man and then tries to arrest her. I did feel like it was kind of weird that she came back and he was completely fine with it. To me, that it just didn't hit as hard as that first scene did. And that's also what kind of brought this movie down a little bit for me. Also, it was a little bit contrived how on that train chase, we have all these variations of spider people all over the place. Like tons of Peter Parkers, and none of them figured out that they were getting lured into a trap. Like super geniuses. Like we had the armored Spider-Man on there as well. There's no way in the world that all of them would fall for that trap. And that also felt a little bit weird to me as well. And also some things I kind of noticed, I was like the Miles scenes in the beginning, although they were great scenes, I love seeing him struggling to balance his home and school life with being a superhero. It did feel kind of weird at the same time, and the fact that we saw a majority of this in the first movie where he's trying to hide stuff from his parents and stuff. We've already seen a bunch of that. So it felt a little bit repetitive and a little bit redundant, but it was still cool to see Miles officially being on his own. And Gwen, I loved her character in the movie. She was really good. She had a lot of humanity to her character, and this felt more like a Gwen Stacy movie than it did a Miles Morales movie. And it worked in the right type of ways. But at the same time, I do wish that they would have dedicated more time to Miles because she's still supposed to be a side character. But I don't mind seeing a Spider-Gwen movie. And if they're going in the direction that I think that they're going in, there might be a reason why they're developing her so much in this movie. All in all, I mean, this movie was fantastic. I can't really complain too much about it. I do want to talk more on some of those cameos that we did see. The most important cameo in the movie that we did see was that we got to see Childish Gambino as the Prowler in this movie, like he was supposed to be in Tom Holland's universe, which makes me wonder, is this connected to Tom Holland's universe? Or is this another Childish Gambino Prowler from another universe? I mean, he was in full suit and everything. And I thought that was a really cool cameo. Now, I was thinking to myself, they didn't do that in Homecoming, and I wish they would have done that with the character. But also makes me lead into some fan theories that I have as well. If you guys want to tune in for that. Some fan theories that I have for this movie is the fact that we did get that announcement that they're doing a live-action Miles Morales movie. So does that mean that Childish Gambino is going to introduce the live-action Miles through the next Spider-Verse movie, Beyond the Spider-Verse? Is that going to introduce Miles Morales into live-action form? Which, that'd be crazy if they did, but it's a very major possibility. I mean, they actually had live-action actors in this movie. They even crossed dimensions into a Lego dimension. So what if we got a Lego Spider-Man movie? But it's just crazy because I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, they have so many possibilities, and the way they expanded on this multiverse was so well done compared to what the MCU is doing that they have so many more possibilities they could do. They found a way to make it coherent and make it make sense. So yeah, I think that cameo had very significant implications that they had for that. And also due to the fact that the Miles Morales character was actually based on Childish Gambino. Because originally there was a campaign. This was when I believe when the Tobey Maguire trilogy ended, they had a campaign for Childish Gambino to be Spider-Man in one of the movies before The Amazing Spider-Man came out. They didn't go that direction, but they inspired the Miles Morales character off of that Childish Gambino image of him in a spider suit, which then inspired the character of Miles Morales, which is why this scene has so much significance to this movie, because this movie would not have been made possible, and the prior movie would not have been made possible without this man. And hats off to you, man. Like, that's a crazy story if I ever heard one. Yeah, I didn't think that would have so much significance, but I just remembered that. And yeah. But all in all, I mean, this movie was pretty incredible. But there, like I said, there were some minor things in there that were just kind of like little things that were bugging me. But even from a writing standpoint, the movie was even better than the last one. It's just, like I said, some of those minor things just kind of brought it back a little bit more than the prior one. But the jokes hit harder. I loved some of the jokes, especially when they went to the Lego dimension, and then you hear J. Jonah Jameson's from J.K. Simmons in that version yelling at a Lego Spider-Man. That scene was hilarious. They had tons of scenes with the spider people that were hilarious. I love how they were making fun of Miguel O'Hara's darkness and how he's a dark Spider-Man, and oh, he's so dark, he's so edgy. They did such a phenomenal job with the writing that, like I said, it's just the minor things just brought it down just a little bit. And it could have been my top Spider-Man movie if it wasn't for those minor things. But for me, my ratings, I'll make a whole separate video discussing my ratings now based on the movies and an updated ratings list. I will leave a link to my others ratings list down below in the comments or maybe even the description of this video. Maybe both, I don't know. But here's how I would go. I would go Spider-Man 2 is my top still. Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spiderverse, No Way Home. That's my 4 right there. And, you know, Across the Spider-Verse dethroned No Way Home because No Way Home had great moments in there, great storytelling, had great crowd-pleasing moments, just fantastic. But the overall story, if you really thought about it, didn't make as much sense. And there were a couple of things that just kind of broke the logic of the story they were trying to tell. And there were some moments that could have been prevented if some characters would just talk some things out, which felt very Batman vs. Superman to me. But all in all, it didn't bring the movie down. It just kind of held it back a little bit more. This movie, it almost felt like almost nothing was holding it back, just for some minor things that were in here. But yeah, I was shocked at how good this movie was. I didn't know that they were going to go with the directions they went in this movie, and I'm glad that they did. I'm trying to think what other characters I'm trying to think of. Oh yeah, we're getting the original Spider Crew with the newer characters added in the next movie, so that's gonna be awesome. Spider-Punk, loved him. Great character added in there. I didn't know he's black, but you know what? It was really cool how, even just from an animation standpoint, let me talk to you artist from artist. Like, I make artwork all the time. I'm trying to find it. I don't have any pictures near me right now. You just see all my art supplies back here, but I do art myself. And this movie was one of the most visually stunning movies I've ever seen in my life. And there were so many minor details put in this movie that would tell you what's going to happen later in the story if you pay attention. For example, when Spider-Punk is walking with Miguel and the others, not Miguel, Spider-Punk's walking with Miles and the others to meet Miguel. You see him grabbing little items here and there saying, oh, these pieces are just worthless, I'm just grabbing them. When he gives that multiverse navigating device to Gwen later on, it was because he was grabbing those pieces earlier on in the movie and made his own device. Which, if you would not have been paying attention to that, you would not have known how he got that. But it's just animation details like that that just make this movie even better. And I mean, I can see why people are calling this the greatest Spider-Man movie of all time. I don't think it's the greatest of all time, but my God, this movie was really, really good. And just like I said, I just wish there were some of those minor things that weren't bringing it down. But even then, still, this was one of the best superhero movies I've seen in a long time. And I've still been thinking about it. Most superhero movies you see nowadays, you see them, you watch them, you either think they're good or bad, whatever your stance is. But most of the time, how many people do you see still talking about those movies right now? When you look at movies that are so good that you're still willing to think about them the rest of the week, that lets you know just how good they are. And so that's something that they did very good. And hats off to you guys. Like, really, really well done, Sony. And I can't wait to see the finale to part one of the Spider-Verse, Across the Spiderverse. So, what did you guys think of the movie? Let me know down below in the comments section. Was this the best Spider-Man movie for you guys? Or are you guys feeling kind of the same way as me? What do you guys think is going to happen in the future? How does this connect to what's the live-action Sony Spider-Man movie with Miles? Or is it doing MCU? I don't know. So much stuff. And yeah, this movie was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. I can't really complain too much about it, like, at all. If I wanted to be a Marvel hater, I could hate on it all I want, but I'm not a Marvel hater. Like, that's something a lot of people, when they watch my channel and they see me ragging on some things with the current Marvel movies, I don't hate Marvel. It's just I don't like bad quality Marvel. This movie showed me that I'm not tired of Marvel movies. I'm more tired of mediocre to bad quality Marvel movies. And with The Flash coming out, if Marvel doesn't get their act together with the MCU side, DC is going to surpass them. And even Sony's Spider-Man movies are going to surpass Marvel MCU movies. So we will see. We will see. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed my quick spoiler talk. Yeah, I absolutely love this movie. It was... I'm still in shock, man. I mean, I'm even wearing a Miles Morales shirt because I'm just geeking out for the day, man. And also just, it's nice to see them do representation and diversity without being over the top. That's one thing I love seeing as well. Like, they're doing representation of a black character without making him a thug. And I love seeing stuff like that. Like, please, Hollywood, give us more stuff like that. So, yeah, I think my review's over. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to go eat and maybe do something. Because I'm at 400 subscribers now. You guys helped me reach that. So I should come out with a video for that. So, here's you guys. Stay tuned. And, yeah, hopefully you guys stay tuned.